On behalf of your host, Steve D., this is Bruce Buffer saying thank you for tuning in to Xtreme Lyfe. And now, this is the moment Xtreme Lyfe fans around the world have been waiting for. It's time!
And we're live. This is Steve D at XtremeLyfe.com, Xtreme Lyfe Podcast. Thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it. Please remember to subscribe to the podcast. We love doing it, and it's a lot of fun. We talk about all kinds of different topics. We're talking about, we talk about shark diving. We talk about fitness. We talk about overcoming adversity. We talk about recovery, a whole lot of different things. So, I hope you enjoy. I'm here today, very excited. I'm here today with Stephanie Krueger. She's going to talk a little bit about, how she, deals with life and handles life and goes, overcomes adversity. And, with that being said, welcome.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me on.
I'm glad you're here. Tell me a little bit about you. Tell me a little bit about what brings you to where you are today.
Well, I'm from Buffalo, so just
cold up there, right?
It's cold up there, but it's actually kind of similar to down here, I think. But
I'm just gonna move this a little closer to you.
So I think just from we're like mutual friends on Facebook, and I saw that you do podcasts, and you were looking for someone for adversity, and so I've just kind of like come off this really crazy year, and just kind of had a really harsh reality check, and I thought sometimes it helps other people who are going through something and kind of don't know which route to go to hear other people's stories. So I was kind of like, I want to share my story, as much as I can of it.
And it's important. It's important because I think everybody in life deals with some adversity, right?
Yeah, we all
and it seems to all happen at the same time sometimes, right? It all culminates into like a few little events that perpetuate through a period of time for you. So, it's important to get stuff like this out there so that people can relate and understand and know that there is hope.
Right. And I think, too, the point of adversity is not to compare who's got it worse. I think a lot of times when people are going through something, and they want to confide in someone, sometimes you think like, well, you don't have it that bad. I have this, and this going on. And it's not.
I'm going to outdo you.
Right. It's not the point. The point is to learn, to teach us to be compassionate and empathetic towards each other, and that there's like a lesson there. And are you going to learn from this lesson, or are you going to stay in this routine, no matter how harsh it is, no matter how scary it is,
And people get stuck in those cycles, right? You get stuck in these cycles of routine. It's like self-perpetuating, right? And you start get that negative self-talk going on where you're starting to really just beat yourself up, tell yourself, beat up your self-esteem by saying negative things to yourself all the time, like I'm not good at this, or I've had people say to me, I'm a loser, and I'm like, no, you're not. The part of this issue is the way you're thinking, and we have to fix that.
And you're your own worst enemy. You're the only reason you're stuck in this situation. I mean, it's so easy to point the finger and think it's this person's fault or that person's fault, but the reality of it is the hardest part is when you have to humble yourself and say, no, it's me.
Yeah.
I need to make the change. Like, I need to do something different.
Look in the mirror.
You look in the mirror
and say, this is a real deep dive into myself here.
Right.
And I need to really look at what's going on, because it can't just be the universe is against me.
Right. Yeah. I used to always tell people, like, what did I do wrong in a previous life?
Yeah.
That I did something wrong and I'm sorry for it, but the reality of it is you're setting up these walls, like you're your only blockade. And there's this one saying, everything you want in life is on the other side of fear, and it's true, because we set up these denial systems in our head where, like, okay, I'm too afraid to do something, or I don't want to do it, so you convince yourself that, well, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
The situation's not that bad. And you literally live your life like in this denial system. And it's just...
Well, you can learn to tolerate a level of discomfort, right? You can, and in some ways it's good, in some ways it's not, right? In some ways you kind of, it's kind of like why people block things out of their brain, right?
Right.
Your brain is set up to protect you, but you get to this point where you could tolerate a certain amount of, well, this is just my life.
Right.
Right? Yeah. You get to that point, we call it fatalistic denial.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you get into this fatalistic denial state where it's like, this is just just the way it is for me. And most people don't realize that it doesn't have to be.
No, right.
You could change things. You could do things, it takes work.
Yeah.
And that's one of the great things about your story is you did some work on yourself.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, the thing is it's like you have one life, just one. I mean, people act like you can buy yourself more time, and they tell themselves, well, in 5 years it'll be better, or I'll stick it out a little longer, and
just by itself.
You can't buy yourself more time, and what happens is you just keep going, and then one day you feel cheated. And I guess the way I look at it is 10 years from now, do you want to look back on your life and say that you chose it or that you settled for it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you shouldn't settle for anything in life. You know what I mean? You could literally have whatever you want if you try. If you go for it. So.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I'm a firm believer in change. I mean, it's one of the things in the field I work in. I work in the field of change.
Right.
And part of that is what we call resolving ambivalence, right?
Yeah.
Ambivalence is where a lot of people sit for a long time before they start to make a change. And how I define that, and how it is defined by Bill Miller, who's a famous psychologist, is that ambivalence is simultaneously wanting two things at the same time or not wanting two things at the same time that do not necessarily work with each other.
Right.
Right? So if you think about this, and you kind of have to get here before you change, right? Because it creates a feeling of discomfort in your brain. Where you get to, and the best way I've always defined it was, let's say you you say, I'm going to start eating healthy, right? And you say, okay, but you're going to this picnic, and when you get to the picnic, you say, I'm only going to eat salad. I'm going to eat the salad, maybe the fruit bar, whatever. I'm going to have healthy food. And you go there, and they bring out the fruit bar, and you're like, okay, that's me. That's all me right there. And then next thing you know, they bring out the big buffet of chocolate cake and candy and all that other garbage that usually, and then you're like, oh, but I really want that.
Right.
This is what I should do, but I really want that. And that's what ambivalence is. And you get to that state. I see it all the time in addictions when I treat addicted clients. They want to have their life better. They want their family better. They don't want to have legal problems, but they also want to keep hanging out with the same people, the same friends, doing the same stuff. And, you are who your friends are. If you hang out with people doing bad things, you're going to do bad things.
Right. You're the product of your environment.
Yeah. I mean, it's where you choose to place that energy, right? So, that's great, So tell me a little bit more about your story and what brought you.
So,
I mean, because this is all great stuff. This is all really good. Your thought process is really, really good on all this. So I really want to get this out there. So
this was not my mentality at all. About a year ago. So it actually happened last August in 2018. I was with my boyfriend of 4 years, and I finally decided to leave the relationship because it wasn't changing. It wasn't going anywhere, and it was to the point where his behaviors weren't changing, and I could continue to get mad. And I continue to let it cause issues, or I can just walk away because it's just not working. So I'm mildly ashamed to say that I left a 4-year relationship with a note on the pillow and packed my bags and left. And
so that was kind of like a Dear John.
Yeah.
And I'm out.
I'm gone.
Okay.
So then, but it was, I guess it's when my family, our life got kind of rocked after that, but it all kind of like the domino effect spiraled downhill after. A week later, I found out my mom had cancer. And that was like the first time in my immediate family, like of just my siblings and, parents that we dealt with that. And anytime you hear that word,
it's hard.
It's terrifying.
Cancer is one of the scariest words.
It's one of the scariest words out
there's
there.
two really scary C words that I call is cancer and change.
Yeah, right.
Two things that scare the hell out of people.
Right.
And I don't know which one scares people more, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But
I know they both are.
But cancer is that's a tough. I've had family members and stuff that have dealt with that.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah, it is. And it's just like we all know someone who's dealt with it.
Yeah.
We all, but it's like when it's like your mom, you know what I mean? It's just like it was just hard, obviously. And then without going into too much detail about this, but, my niece was born last May and this was August. So just a few months later, we found out that, she was born with, she was just had a, and we still don't fully know what it is, but I mean, she just had this genetic mutation that was causing seizures all the time. So that was, this was all literally the same day. This all happened. And so, we just all had something to deal with. It was like the three of us going through something, which I felt personally a breakup isn't as big of a deal as like,
It's a 4-year relationship, though.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a heck of a lot of loss you got to deal with in
It
that,
is, yeah.
and it's a big change, right?
Yeah.
So that's hard. Yeah.
But the problem with that is I was always so used to shutting down. I just shut down and didn't deal with things. So when this was all going on, I was like, okay, I can't deal with what I have going on right now because I have way more important things. I need to be there for my family. I need to, whatever they need, make sure they're okay. And so I was staying with my parents at the time, and then fast forward a month, and I'm sitting behind 2 stop buses. I'm in my car, 2 stop buses, and there's a line of 4 cars in front of me. And next thing you know, I'm waking up to my airbag in my lap because the woman behind me wasn't paying
Just
attention, plowed
blasted
into
you.
me, propelled me into the car in front of me. And now I am looking for an apartment and I have no car, and I'm just like, wow.
So three major things all happen like at the same time for you, and it just kind of, and that's enough to make you throw your hands up in the air and go, what the hell?
Yes.
What the heck is going on here?
Right. And then naturally, I had an old friend that popped back into my life when this was all going on, and we just kind of like reconnected because my ex had some insecurity issues, so I just did not talk to a lot of guys. Didn't have a lot of guy friends,
Okay.
So it was like I can talk to someone and I'm not going to get in trouble. And I guess in such a vulnerable state, naturally, I fell hard.
Okay.
I fell hard for him.
Okay.
And no one even knows this. I don't even share this part of the story. This is the first time.
Well, now everybody's gonna know. I'm just saying.
I don't even say his name, So it was doomed from the start.
Yeah.
So why?
Well, usually those rebound relationships are they end up in bad spots.
I know. Yeah, so.
Usually, I'm
Yeah.
just saying. I'm not saying all the time, but
No.
I haven't heard a whole lot of good
right?
outcomes when it's stuff like that.
But I fully confided, and he was there for me, and it was, I don't know. And so naturally that did not work well. That ended. And it ended to the point where we said, like, okay, we can't talk. Like, nothing. It was
it just got that
cold
bad.
turkey, where I had someone that I confided in and was there for me, to they're just gone. So now he helped me through like the whole dealing process, but once he was gone, it was like I am 100% on my own
I'm alone.
to deal with this. And
For the first time,
Right.
probably in
a long
over
time.
4 years.
Right.
Right. That we based on what you're telling me.
Right.
And that's like, okay, now what?
Now, right. So
Now what do I do?
Is, me for months. I don't know if I've ever cried so much in my life. I think just because of everything. And you can sit there and bang your head against the wall and wonder, like, why did this happen? Why is this happening to me? Like, what is the lesson I'm supposed to learn here? And it took me a really long time to figure it out. And it even took me going down. I actually booked the trip to to dive with the sharks, to do the shark dive in Tiger Beach.
As a way to cope with.
I'm like, I need to feel something other than sad right now.
Yeah,
even if I get my arm ripped off, I'm still going to feel something other than sad, right?
That might be better than feeling what you were feeling.
Yes, it was.
Okay,
And
all right.
I got to tell you,
At least that didn't happen. I'm glad that didn't happen.
Me too. But I'm thinking, like, which one would I want him to take anyways? Probably the left one. I'm right-handed. You know what I mean? I thought about
if you had a choice.
if I had a choice. Which one am I going to push away with? So, but it was a total game changer. That experience actually did exactly what I think I needed it to do. I felt everything.
Yeah.
When I was down, at one point I was sitting on the bottom of the ocean, knees in the sand.
Now this was at Tiger Beach.
Yeah, at Tiger Beach in the Bahamas.
Yep.
And there's
Just want to throw that out there for everybody. And you went with Lee Cobb, right?
Yes.
I just want to put that out there for Lee as well.
Amazing. Lee is so amazing. Except I will say one thing, but we do 4 dives, and before the fourth one is when she talks about all the close calls, and I was like, oh, I still got one more dive to do. Could you say this? So I'm down there, and I'm just like, okay, there's 4 tiger sharks, there's 6 to 8 bull sharks, there's 30 other sharks, and I'm just like, how am I going to get up to that boat? Oh my God, but
just swim. They won't bother you.
I don't think about, but when it's crazy because I tell people, like, we talk about fear.
Yeah.
And there is, so many people say I would never swim, I would never jump into shark-infested water. And I'm like, you really should.
Yeah.
Because it is just, it's the craziest feeling. To be right there with these animals and to have, like, nothing happen, this, like, connection. You know what I mean? They sit there and they make them out to be these, like, man-eating.
Yeah, there's no such thing as a man-eating shark.
No,
it just doesn't exist.
I had I clean houses for this one adorable little old lady, and I was telling her how I went down there, and I showed her pictures and stuff, and I'm cleaning her house, and like 2 hours later, she walks in the room. She's like, Stephanie, I've been thinking, and she's like, why didn't those sharks eat you? And I was like, oh, Marge, because they don't.
Because I don't taste good.
I don't taste good. They just don't eat people, But when I was down there, I actually, I'm looking at these beautiful, beautiful fish, and I'm not super religious, I'm more spiritual, but like when you look at this fish, when you look at that pattern that goes from head to toe, you believe in something. You believe there's something out there, and it was just, it almost made me sad too, because I was thinking, like, these fish have been around since the dinosaurs.
They haven't really changed
the planet, but
they haven't really changed at all.
Look how much the planet has.
Yeah.
Look at what we've done. Look how much we've destroyed. Look at how, and look how much it's changed. Look how much our oceans have changed, and it just made me, like, so sad to, like, feel for them even, but after that experience, I was like, kind of moody. When I came home, I was like, I just hate this, I felt so good down there with them, and here I am.
That happens. That's called vacation depression.
Yeah. Oh my God. But
you get it when you're done.
But this was a hard one because I was like,
because you're still dealing with all that other stuff. Yeah.
And I realized, like, okay, once I get to the surface, it's back on. So it did take me a while, and I finally had my moment. So this all happened last August. And it was this past summer, that I finally had my moment. When I was dating my ex, he had 2 kids, and he was divorced. And me and his ex-wife were horrible to each other for 4 years, And
which happens often in those type of situations.
With women, right? We all know this.
Well, I'm not going to go there.
Yeah, it's okay.
You could go there if you want to. I'm not going there.
So, I never thought the day would come that I'd ever apologize to her. Because it was like mutual, and but I had this moment that I finally we were talking about me seeing she still let me see the kids where he wouldn't.
Okay.
So I was great. So we were civil in talking about that when it came to the girls, and then finally I just had my moment, and I just texted her and I said, hey, I said, you don't have to accept this, and I expect nothing in return, but I said, I just want you to know I'm sorry for everything I have ever done or said to you. Okay. And I said, he's never going to change, and I said, the day's going to come where you realize that you're better off and you deserve better. I said, you're going to find someone, and you're going to realize that this is why this all happened. And I said, I just want you to know that I'm genuinely sorry. And she told me, I was like, dude, this is going to get handled in one of 2 ways. She's either going to tell me
either going to lash out.
It's way too late, or maybe not,
Yeah.
And she did. She said to me, she's like, I really appreciate that. And she was like, it seems like since you've been gone, there's no fun movie nights. There's no fun outings. Like, he's just, he just kind of does his own thing. And I said, and I'm not even trying to.
It's a shame for the kids, too.
Right. But I'm not even trying to, like, bash him in any kind of way. But, it just, so after that, I actually cried, and that was like my moment. Like, I realized that it finally hit me why this all happened, why have I had this year, why have I had this struggle, why, someone was brought into my life to basically shake me the way you're not supposed to shake a child, and then was gone, and it was because I was the worst version of myself. Like, this is what was going on.
Okay.
Even in this woman had to deal with it pretty much, because I was angry all the time in that relationship. Like, his family would say things about me. She would say things about me. He'd never defend me. I was always on the defense. I was always looking to get back at people.
Sounds like a hard place to be. I mean, it sounds like really, like, difficult to live in that constant state of alertness, so to speak.
Yes, like, always ready. But the thing is I should have walked away. But instead, I let it, like, fuel me. And so when someone would say something about me, I was looking to get them back times 10. You know, like I was looking to, well, I'm going to get him way worse, you know, and I'm like embarrassed and ashamed to say that I was ever like that, because what I should have done is realize this situation is not good for me and I should have walked away, but like I let it go on.
There's an old saying,
you know?
It's when you seek revenge, dig 2 graves.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
So,
yeah.
It's one of those things where I think we find that out. You have to learn that. That's not something you kind of get right off the bat. You have to figure that out as you go in life.
Right.
You know?
And it's hard. And I actually read something that was, it said, the strong, what was it? No. The weak seek revenge, the strong forgive, and the smart ignore. And I was like, I was not strong or smart in this situation at all. I just represented weak, you know. And I'm like, and that's one thing I told her too.
But you grow, right? And that's what happens. That's the beautiful thing about being a person is you can change. And that's one thing I think we've forgotten a lot in today's day and age, because people are getting persecuted for things they did 30 years ago, and it's like we freeze them in that time period. Yeah. And it does. Maybe that's not the same person.
Right.
You could do things, I mean, God, I did things in my childhood and in my youth that I would never do today.
Right.
And people change. I mean, that's part of why we talk about this stuff, is because we need to know that people can change, but we get locked into this is who you are.
Right.
And, you know, it's impossible to make a change, but I've seen it firsthand. I've seen people make amazing changes.
Right, yeah. And you also, like, too, you have to, in the process, like, forgive. Forgiveness is huge, I realized. So right after this all happened, I was like, all right, I'm going back to therapy, because I need, like, that logic, kind of that logical way of thinking, where she basically, I'd tell her a situation and she'd be like, okay, look at it this way. Here's another way to deal with it, you know. But with me, I process things like, sometimes it takes me like 2 days to process something, you know. So then sometimes like it would hit me, you know. And I started the therapy. I went through spiritual healing with a friend. I changed what I read. You know, they say, you know, your diet isn't just food.
It's information.
It's what you put in your brain. It's the people you hang out with, like the energy you surround yourself with. And everything that I read, everything that at the webinars that I just happened to come across, the books that I picked up, they all had to deal with this concept of love versus fear. Yeah. So it was just, I guess, for me, it was like, wow, I've gone 33 years of my life, and I've never really like looked at things like this at all before, you know. And to have this wake up call at 34 then years old of like, Stephanie, you weren't good, you know what I mean? Like my friends tell me all the time, they're like, you're way too hard on yourself. It's not like you killed anyone. And I'm like, I understand that, but like when you kind of have that realization, you just go through this like shame, embarrassment, you know. Sometimes just sitting there crying, saying I'm sorry out loud, because I'm just like, what was I doing? How was I even living like that? Like I literally lived 4 years of my life just angry all the time, fueled by fear, fueled by anger, you know. And it's horrible, you know. And so that's
carrying bricks around. It's like carrying a weight that you just don't know where it's coming from, and you just constantly get pushed down, and you're constantly beating up yourself over it, and then you lash out. Yeah. You're right, and other people tend to be the hostages in that situation.
Yes, I know. Yeah. And it's just, I guess the insecurity I had to deal with was like his end of it, but I just should have walked away sooner. So, I mean, it was just crazy. I mean, like the books I was saying, like I was reading, had to do with like forgiveness, and that's something that's huge. You know, you don't forgive people so that, you know, you don't say like, oh, I forgive you, so everything's good now. You forgive them so that you can, you know, so you can be free. So if you see them or if you hear their name, you don't get mad, you know. You're just like, okay, this is what it is. Like I can't even say things about my ex. Like I can't even sit there and I mean, I just wouldn't want to have like some kind of shit talking fest, you know, where a lot of women like want to get together and do this, and I just don't want to do that.
Well,
I just don't have
nothing comes out of that anyway.
Right, nothing comes out of it,
and you know, it's you know. And you're absolutely right. Amends isn't about, you know, when you make amends, you apologize, you know, and amends and apologies are two different things, you know, but you know, when you go down that road, it's about you. It's about cleaning house. Yeah. You know, it's about, you know, it's actually when you forgive other people, it's also about forgiving yourself.
Right. Yes.
And that's what you really have to. A lot of people really don't realize that, but it's not just about saying you're sorry either. It's
Right.
about being sincere.
Right.
It's about trying to make things right.
Yeah.
Whatever that is. And, and basically getting right with yourself so that you can move on
Yeah.
past that point.
Right. And that was huge too. Like I kept focusing on forgiving everyone else, and then I finally realized, like, you're not forgiving yourself. You're still being hard on yourself, and this is what's holding you back, And it's just, I guess just through the whole process, I've realized like how freeing it is, and how I realize I will never go back to that. You know what I mean? You just look at everything differently, and you also start to, they say that you attract what you reflect. You know what I mean? And I realized like I was attracting insecure people from the start. These people a lot of them were unhappy and looking for like a scapegoat, and people would say like, oh, I love your free spirit and everything, and they were trying to find that in me, and it's like, I can't be that for you. So now it's
could only be that for yourself.
Only
whatever
for
that
yourself. Like, you got to find it on your own. So now it's funny, like when people come to me with their problems, sometimes I'm like, okay, there's only so much I can do, but sometimes you just got to pull back and be like, you can't talk to these people. You know what I mean? Like it's funny, the people, like the way you change your environment, you change who you hang out with, you change what you're exposing yourself to. I'm telling you, my advice to anyone going through any kind of adversity is like, pay attention, do the work. You will get signs of what you're supposed to do. You know what I mean? And it's funny too, because you also have to be grateful, and you have to notice the reward, because we're always being tested.
Yeah.
You're always being tested as, and it's the hard stuff is what makes you who you are, but it's like the easy stuff is the reward. And that's where you need to be grateful and thankful. And that's where you pay it forward. So like an example is, after doing all this work, basically, I'd say all summer, I probably stopped. I went to Jordan in October, and I think that's when I was done.
Okay.
And when I came home, it was funny because my boss I worked for Starbucks, and he went to this convention in Chicago. And
shout out to Starbucks.
Yeah.
Love your coffee.
We're all right. But the Starbucks Foundation was giving away grants. And I I don't work for, but I run a chapter of this organization, the Inland Ocean Coalition, and they're out of Colorado, and I have a chapter in Buffalo, and we basically try to educate people on the threats that the oceans face, but that it's not just the coastal issue, it's also plastic pollution comes from inland. Inland communities are contributing to carbon emissions. It's not just happening like on our coast.
On our coastline, yeah.
So we try to educate like the inland communities as to the effect we're having, how we're all tied together, and things you can do. So I started a chapter in Buffalo, and my boss had nominated my chapter for a grant, and I ended up getting $1,500. And like,
cool.
That's when you realize like
you can make a difference.
You can make a difference, but this is your reward. You have to notice, like, things don't just happen. They happen for a reason, and so. Yeah,
good living, and taking care of yourself has positive results, right? I mean, it definitely does. I mean, and I've seen that over and over again, and you have to allow yourself to do that. And in order to do that, I mean, you got to, and it's my belief, you have to take care of three things in your to have a balanced life, right? You have to take care of your spiritual fitness, spiritual wellness, and by spirituality, I don't mean religion, at all. You can.
Yeah.
Religion and spirituality can go hand in hand. They often do. But I've also known some religious people who weren't very spiritual.
Right.
So, but spirituality is not an outward-based thing, right? Religion is an organized form of worship. That's when you define it, you look at it that way. That's what it is.
Right.
It's an organized, set way we worship, whatever God we're worshiping. When you look at spirituality, it's more defined as an inner-based peace, right?
Right.
So that's me feeling okay with me. I'm okay with where I am right now, and you could do that anywhere, and just that's a piece of you, right? That's an inward-based thing. So then you need the physical piece, keeping yourself physically healthy, obviously, and then mentally healthy. Right? So you got spiritual, mental, and physical wellness all have to kind of be in line for someone to actually start to feel really good, right?
Yeah, for balance.
Yeah, so to have that balance. And we're all works in progress. Believe me, nobody's perfect. We all fly in and out of those good spots in our life. And sometimes we come out of character.
Yeah, right. Go back in, though,
But as long as we figure that out, I mean, part of, I share this without any hesitation at all. But I'm in recovery. I've been sober for a long time, and I've had to do a lot of work on myself as well. And that being said, there's each piece of that, is a continuous process. The last 3 steps that we use in the program to stay sober is, a maintenance. Because you could do all the work, right? And I think we started to talk about this a little bit in the kitchen, right?
Right.
You could do you could do all the work, make a lot of amazing changes, but if you don't maintain that,
right,
you could slip backwards. Right? I mean, and I'm sure you can speak to that a little bit as far as how do we maintain? How do you stay, like, now that you did all this work, how do you stay in that good spot?
Right.
Yeah. And that's I think a hard thing to for a lot of people to wrap their head around, because a lot of times it'll do the work and then we do the work and then we move on.
Yeah. I think too sometimes people think they're doing the work, sometimes. So when this all went down at the same time last year in August, I think right after Christmas was over, I started counseling right away. I went to therapy, and I just straight up told her everything that just happened, and I was like, I just need to make sure I'm going to be okay. She's like, what do you need from me? I'm like, I'm just going to explain this entire situation to you. I'm going to explain how my last relationship was. I'm going to explain what just happened with this other guy. And I'm like, I just need you to, do you think I'm going to be okay? Am I going to be okay? But what I realized is I was not done. But she's like, I said, I think I'm done coming and I feel better. But what I realized is I was just putting a Band-Aid on. Then when it really hits you, you stop filling the voids. You know what I mean? So at first I was like, well, I need a guy to talk to take my mind off of this guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But all I'm doing is using this person. All I'm doing is filling a void.
Yeah.
Go out and get drunk. You're just filling a void. Once I was finally ready, on my knees, crying on the floor, saying I'm sorry.
We call that surrender.
Surrender.
You finally surrendered to the process.
There was no filling voids.
Yeah.
I did not talk to anyone, and I don't mean in general, I literally didn't talk to anyone for months, but I chose to kind of live in solitude for a little while, where I didn't really go out. I sat home and I journaled a lot. I would walk my dog by the water, because I go by the water almost every single day of the year. I am by water.
Well, it has a whole lot of healing properties
and that's for me,
to it. Yeah,
especially. So that always made me feel better. But I'd go right there. Like I said, I did I worked on the spiritual healing with my girlfriend, and then another thing too was affirmations. I helped a lot. So they say the power of your mind, right? And your thoughts are great and everything, but when you say it out loud, when actually. They talk about be positive, but it's not just about being positive, and it's not just about saying it.
It's about believing it.
It's about believing it, because you can actually change your brain's frequency when you say this stuff out loud. So one of the things I focused on was forgiveness, and I would out loud, slowly. They also say that your brain, you have to speak slowly, because your brain takes it. It takes it a little longer than it takes for your mouth to speak it, for your brain to absorb it. So you speak slowly. And I'd work on forgiving people and saying it out loud and saying, I'm going to do this. I'm going to feel better. You know what I mean?
And one technique that I often use with people too, with that, to help with that, is to really process that stuff, is to, I'm a big fan of writing things down, right? Write a journal and write your affirmations every day in a journal.
Right.
Because when you actually do that, you process it completely, right? So now you think it, you say it out loud, and then it goes through the body to the hand to the written word, right? And then you could look at it on the written word, and you really kind of get everything involved to really get your mind going that way. And it's a way of kind of rewiring, a little bit, the way you think, and get rid of that negative self-talk. Because when things are going wrong, we started off kind of talking about that. You start,
true.
I'm a bad person, I'm this, I'm that, and it's hard to get around that.
Right. But once you realize it too, I think. How do you feel after your recovery and the fact that you did it? You feel amazing, right?
Oh yeah. Here's what I tell people. First Life, and I deal with this every day, because that's the field I work in, is addiction and recovery most of the time. And I tell people, first, you're going to be different. It's not going to miraculously just get better.
Yeah.
First, life is just different. then it starts to change a little more and a little more, and then it is what you make of it.
Right.
Right. So don't get me wrong. I get up some days and still have terrible days.
Right.
Right. I have a lot of days that I get up and I'm like, oh man, this day sucks.
Right.
But it's how you handle it now rather than how you handled it before.
Which is so different, right?
Very different.
It's just the way I look at things is, okay, you know, we tend to like think too much about things like, oh, it's, you know, maybe you ask somebody out and they don't call or they don't want to go out with you and you think, oh, it's me. What I realize is you do not know the truth. You don't know the truth. The truth is always changing. So it's like, why do we sit here and beat ourselves up? We don't know the truth. Like, why do we sit there and beat someone else up to make ourselves feel better? You don't know the truth. So it's like you stop doing that. I started realizing
we come up with our own truth sometimes, right? We come up with what we think, you know.
And it's not.
It may not even be like, because I used to do that too. I'd be like, you know, years ago when I'd go to work, I'd be like, you know, my boss seems really upset today. And I would think it was about me.
Right. Yeah. And
not thinking that maybe she had a bunch of other things going on. It had nothing to do with me that were stressing her out.
Right.
You know, but, you know, that's part of the, you know, I think sometimes we all get a little bit narcissistic, right? It's all about me.
Yeah. So, and it's just like, why do we do this to ourselves? You know, I could look back on, I mean, I'm 34, like I told you in my bio. I was like, I'm 34 years old. I've never been married, no kids. I mean, by society's eyes, I'm like, what is she doing with herself, right?
Well,
you know, and
you're living your life.
I'm living my life, you know. But
however you want to live it.
I could look back at every relationship and think like, what did I do wrong, or you know, was it me, or why wasn't I lovable? Because I honestly look back at all of them and I realized they were not based on love, you know. So to have that like harsh like I've never been in a relationship that I could be who I want, that they
just be yourself.
I could never do that. There was always some
What was it, do you think, that was stopping that? I mean, was it insecurity? It was just like, if someone finds out who I really am, they may not like me. I mean, was it any of that kind of stuff?
I think it has to do with control a lot,
okay.
You know? And I feel
I'm controlling the information you're getting about me.
Well, I think I just mean like insecurity on their end. Like I couldn't be myself, and because of like
because of their
insecurity.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So it was like, you know, with my ex, like getting mad about if I talked to a guy, you know what I mean? Or, you know, I was like, it just always meant I was flirting, or, you know, I would just be accused of the dumbest stuff. You know what I mean? But it's just like, I'm just being me. I'm just doing what I do. And I'm like, sorry that you can't handle this, but it's just like, I'm very passionate like about the ocean and ocean conservation. I love traveling. I love diving, all of it. And it's just like, I'm going to go do these things. This is who I was before you. This is who I was during you. And this is who I'm going to continue to be. And so you don't change for people. We know this.
You shouldn't
change, but you
shouldn't.
Also can't
and people do conform.
Right.
You know, sometimes people get kind of like pushed in. They're the square peg gets pushed into that round hole kind of thing, and they try to change to make the other person happy.
Right. But
or to avoid conflict.
Right.
A lot of times it's mostly to avoid conflict, like you were talking about.
Right.
Like if you went out and talked to somebody, you know, there would be a lot of issues for doing that. To avoid that conflict altogether, you probably just stop doing that. You shut down. You stop being who you were to accommodate that situation.
Right. Yeah, because you don't want to deal
You just don't want to deal with what's going to happen as a result, right? So, which is not a good place to be.
No.
Not a good place to be at all. You want to be able to be yourself. And, you know, as humans, we are social.
Yes.
We are social creatures. You know, we could talk to somebody and be friends with people without anything else being the overtone, so to speak.
I agree. I mean, a lot of people don't agree with that. They act like, oh, if you have a male friend, like, why aren't you dating them? Because they're a guy and you're a girl. And I'm like,
yeah, but that's not all.
Because they're my friend. Because there's no spark. You know what I mean? I'm not just gonna like date someone. Oh, you're a guy and I'm a girl. Let's go. Let's hold hands and date. You know what I mean?
And that's a very kind of a immaturish way of thinking.
I agree.
Just because, you know, and not to put anybody down or anything like that. It's just one of those things where, you know, it's almost like high school-y kind of stuff.
Right.
You know, you could have friends that are male, female, whatever, and just be friends. You work with people that are male or female. Right. Are you dating all of them?
Right. Exactly. I know.
You shouldn't be, because if you, you know, but, you know, it's just, you can have that platonic relationship with somebody and not be, and I see that a lot. I talk to a lot of people that have these types of relationships going on, which is really, I commend you, and it's great that you're here talking about it, because it is kind of a difficult thing for people to manage and deal with. And maybe not everybody needs to, it doesn't mean all the relationships need to end, but it just means that maybe you need to do some soul searching, get some therapy, maybe some couples counseling to process that stuff and get to a better place, so that nobody has to kind of, because when you have to conform to somebody else's will, often it leads to resentments and anger, and and sometimes even like the self-defeating thoughts, and negative self-talk that we talk about, so. And
that's also too, I think what people don't realize is like, that's not love. Love doesn't try to change you. Love doesn't try to make you what they want you to be. Love like lets you go out into the world and be yourself, because when you really love someone, you're like, I think you're great, and I think everyone else is going to think you're great. You know what I mean?
And you want that person to be,
I want people to see how great you are. You know what I mean? Yeah. Where it's like, if someone's trying to hold you back from being who you are and doing what you do, then it's just not. It doesn't come from a place of love.
Yeah, and I've often said, let's put it this way, and guys are competitive on that level. I'm gonna, I'll be straight up and say, guys are competitive. When you got a girlfriend and you're, in that dating cycle, or you've been together for a while, or even if you haven't been together for a while, I've seen a lot of guys, like another guy will come up and we all think the other guy's just trying to hit on the girl. Right? I mean, I think that's just how guys' minds sometimes work. It's like, but here's the thing. Do you trust your girl?
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. I mean, comes down to that. The other person could intend to do whatever the hell they want. As long as you trust your girl, let it go. Let it go. And you should be flattered, to be honest with you. Hey, other people want to hang out with my girlfriend, and I trust my girlfriend, so I got nothing to worry about. And that's just my opinion.
No,
people could take it or leave that, but.
That's how it's funny though, because I do feel like, there's, if you really think about it, there's so many people out there like who are just getting by. You know what I mean? Who are just like, they're in their situation, they're afraid to leave, they're afraid of what the change is going to be. You have people saying, well, the grass isn't always greener, and it's like, screw that entire saying. That's you know what I mean? Like, no, the grass isn't always greener, but that's like said by people who are completely content staying in their little comfort zone. You know what I mean? I'm not going to leave my comfort zone. I'm afraid of what might happen. You know what I mean? Because,
and sometimes you have to take that leap, right? You have to take that chance, and especially if you're not happy. You just, one message I love to put out there is, everybody out there deserves to be happy. Everybody deserves that. You should do whatever you can to try to get to that point. If it means making some changes in your life, make some changes. There's an old poem I used to read all the time. To my clients, and it was called "Life is a Theater." And I don't know it verbatim, but off the top of my head, but it was basically about that. Some people, your life is like a theater, right? Now, picture a theater. You got all these seats. Does everybody sit in the front row? No. So some people, you could love them, but you may have to take a balcony seat in my life. So you may have to move some people around from time to time in the seating arrangement of your theater, of your life. To make yourself more functional and have a happier life. I mean, it's just the way, because, I do this thing where I try to take all the toxic people out.
Well, and you should.
I don't want any toxic people in my life putting in any negative noise. It doesn't mean I don't want to hear negative feedback, because I do. But as long as it's not a constant negative barrage just because we want to be angry about something. Because I think we've gotten to a point today, in today's day and age, where people just want to be upset. They want to be angry. They'll probably be upset that I just said that.
Exactly. And it's just like, when you get upset about stuff like that, for someone to actually get upset because you just said that, it's like, okay, what's the underlying? There is an underlying issue, and that's what you're missing. You're too busy like getting upset over the smallest little things. Like, I got to be honest with you, the whole, I look at gay marriage and people who are mad about gay marriage. How does that affect you? How does that affect you? It doesn't affect you. There's something else going on inside.
There's a few things that could be happening there
with a lot of like how other people live their life. If it does not affect you at all, then there's something else going on, and you need to look into that. But I agree with you with the toxic people, because that's something I also realized I needed to do. I'm like, you can't just keep like hanging out with the same people because they want to hang out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you give people multiple chances. I finally was like, I had to get some people, like,
move them to
stop
the
talking to them,
Yeah.
but like all together, because you know,
move them
they
out of
say-
the theater altogether.
They left the theater. Yeah, I
Get out of the
saw them,
theater.
see
You're
the
you're
exit
done.
sign, you gotta follow the lights.
Sometimes
you
you
know?
have to do that.
You do
Sometimes
have to
you
do
have to
that,
do that.
and you have to do that and not feel bad, because you know, you talk about how everything has a frequency and
Yeah.
everyone puts off an energy, and when those energies are not working for you, then you know you got to change it.
How hard
you
is
know?
that though to just say you got to leave the theater?
Yeah, right?
How
Well,
hard is that? I mean, that's got to be. I mean, I've done it in my life with a few, you know,
Right.
quite a few people over the years of my life. But you know, it's you know, it's hard, right?
Yeah. And honestly, the conversation I had was, I was like, look, I've learned a lot about myself over the past few months, and I was like, right now you're giving me excuses for your actions, but the thing is excuses are just words until they're put into action. It's just words. I said, and I never see it with you. And I was like, and so I can't do this. Like, I'm sorry, but I can't even be your friend.
It's just not good for me.
It's not good for me.
Yeah.
It's not good with like the growth that I'm working on right now and what I'm working. And sometimes you have to do that.
Yeah.
You have to put yourself first, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Nope.
You know, if you
There's certain
want-
things it's okay to be selfish about.
It is.
And that's one of those things where when it comes down to your personal happiness and growth, then you should be selfish with that
You
and
absolutely
start
should be.
moving things around to make it happen.
because you are the only one who can make it happen. You know, you can't even look to other people to, and that's why, like, for the first time in my life, like I said, I kind of went into solitude, like while I was doing all this, because I was like, I can't point the finger at anyone to blame. I can't point the finger at anyone for the answer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you have to find the answer. You can go from therapist to therapist if you want.
Yeah.
But the real, you know, you could say this therapist isn't working, so I'm going to try this one. But it's just like, no, it's not that they're not working. It's that you're not seeing this for what it is.
Well, you're not
willing
yeah.
to face it.
You
and
may
you're
not be willing to do the work.
Right.
Yeah. So, you know, and that's the thing. And I think the best therapists, and this is, you know, coming from a therapist,
Yeah,
that's
right.
what I do.
So-
The best therapists are going to be the ones that allow you the room to self-explore.
Figure it out on your own.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not here to get, you know, I tell people that all the time. I'm not here to give you the answers.
Right.
I don't have them all.
Your
If I-
friends don't have the answers, you know?
No.
Your parents don't have the answers. Like, this is your life. This is your path. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
But the thing is with therapy, like, I know a lot of people don't believe in it, and that's to each their own.
Yeah.
But it's just, sometimes you just need this like unbiased opinion. You need to go in there and you need to talk to someone, and they just, like my therapist, it's funny because she was an intern, so for me it's like, oh gosh, she's not like, you know,
She's not a full-out licensed
No.
person. And
But
yeah, but you know what? That's okay. Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
Sometimes people do their best work
Right.
when they're interning.
Right.
So,
But not only that, but it was like, you can't even go in there with that kind of mindset, because
Yeah.
when you have that kind of mindset, you're already convincing yourself they're not going to help me. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
Where I just went in there, like I said, the first session I had was just basically putting a Band-Aid on everything. And then once I realized, okay, I'm not done, I went back, and that first visit, I sat on her couch and I cried for the whole hour.
Okay.
And just, she's like, Stephanie, she's like, when you came here last time, I did not see this like side of you. She's like, look at you right now. And I
Yeah.
was like, I know.
Yeah.
She's like, what are you going to do about it? You know, and every session I came back, she never told me, do this, do that, read this, read that. No, every session I came back, she's like, what are you working on? I said, I've been journaling. She's like, that's great.
Yeah.
I said, I've been reading this book about, it's called The Mastery of Love. I recommend it to everyone. I bought this book for so many people. I have referred this book to so many
Okay.
people. It's about, basically the whole book starts out about, you know, this denial system you set up in your head. You know, how so many people live their lives just saying, well, this is good enough, so I'm just going to keep going. You know,
They
where
accept.
they accept where
Yeah.
you could be happier. And then it ends up leading to resentment, whether it's at work, whether it's, you know, in a relationship. And then it talks about healing past wounds and how the best way to do that is to forgive yourself, and how basically the only way to live life is in love. Like, we have to, you have to live in love and not
Yeah.
fear. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And just how different you'll feel, how different your relationships will be. But I mean, when I got done reading this book, I actually thought of so many of my relationships, not just
brought back
guys
some.
I dated, not just friends, but like I
Just
even looked
other
at my
relationships.
parents.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you look at the, you know, the relationship you have with your parents and why it might be different with your mother than your father. And then I went back to their parents
Yeah.
and their upbringing. And you know, we all have like family issue. Well, I mean, maybe not.
Every family does.
Every
family has their,
issues,
you know,
right?
I've learned
They
one
do.
thing. There's no such thing as the fully functional family.
No, there's not, and that's part of what
just
makes
doesn't
it fun,
exist.
you know?
Yeah.
But I was reading this thing, and it was basically said, like, forgive your parents, because you look at the way, you know, you can sit there. So they say, like, children of divorce, they end up not, like, messed up because their parents got divorced, and it's like, okay, but then they say stay together for the kids and the damage that does. And it doesn't necessarily mean two happy parents or two unhappy parents are going to do any damage to you. It could only be one parent that did some damage, or it could be an uncle, or it could be, you know what I mean? There's all kinds, but like they say, you know, you have to like forgive, because what you don't realize is that your parents grew up with their own family.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Yeah.
You weren't even born yet. You don't know what their childhood was like.
Yeah.
You don't know who had an influence on them that had an effect on how they are. You know what I mean? So it's like you can't carry this like generational trauma on forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it like once you realize like what it is, what could be stopping you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like for me, my like one thing my therapist like I pointed out is that my dad is like the type who just wants us to be happy. That's all he cares about. So I remember one thing I got from my father is that the first car accident I got in, I was 18 or 19, and my car got totaled, and I wasn't even done paying it off. Now at 18
that's
or
rough.
19, I'm not making a lot of money,
Yeah.
and now I owe $5,000 on the car, and
That
I
you
need
don't
a
even
new
have.
one.
Yeah.
You know, and so he said to me, he's like, I know this is hard to hear right now, Steph, but he's like, two of the most important things is your happiness and your health. And at least he's like, people have it worse, and you're going to get through this, you know? And that's something I think about all the time. So now last year, with everything going on, and then my car gets totaled, and I'm like, well, at least I'm happy and healthy, right? I don't have an apartment to live in. I don't have a car to drive, but I am happy and healthy right now.
Well, there
right?
you go. That's all
know?
you need.
But where my mother's the type where she's just like, you need to meet a man. She's been telling me since I was 22 that I should be married with children. That's what you should do. You're a woman. You should be married with children, you know? And now you fast forward 12 years and I'm still not, you know? And
So how happy is she about
right?
that?
But I still hear about it all the time, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just such a difference. And I realized that that had something to do with her upbringing. But
Well,
like,
that's probably what she learned
Right.
as a child. You know,
Right.
you got to remember, you got two things that go on there. You know, in your the way you live, and it's the biological aspects of yourself, and then there's the, you know, there's the hereditary part that comes from your family, but then there's also the environmental piece,
Right.
which is the, you know, learned stuff, the things you learn, that's social behavior, what
Right.
this is supposed to be. Your child's supposed to, you know, you're supposed to, you know, get married, never get divorced,
Right.
have children, and then they're going to do the same thing and repeat the cycle, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat,
Right.
rinse and repeat.
Exactly.
You know, but that's, you know, the way things, and we talked a lot about change, but, you know, that's, you know, life, the way people live has changed. The nuclear family isn't a norm anymore.
Right.
Like the you know, mom, dad, and the two kids.
Right.
And the
everyone's
dog.
happy.
And the dog. Sorry, Storm.
Yeah.
But that doesn't really exist anymore.
Right.
So, you know, it's more common that people come from a broken home than not.
Right.
At this point, you know, and that whole belief that, you know, the broken home causes damage. Oh yeah, but sometimes, like you said before, the staying together causes damage.
Right.
And resentments and anger, and, you know, someone said to me, resentments are like drinking poison and waiting for someone else to die.
Right. Yeah.
Which I
I've
think
heard
is a
that too.
very great, very
true.
good way to analyze, you know, having those resentments and anger. But, you know, you have to understand that people grow up all kinds of different ways now,
Right.
and that's why we can't just stick everybody in this box, right? You come from a broken home, so therefore you must have this going on, or you come from a family that stayed together but they were fighting all the time, so you must have this. Some
Right.
people come out of that stuff great.
Totally fine. Completely happy. Completely
And some people
successful.
don't.
Right. But
It's just the way, you know, there's a whole lot of factors that go into play
exactly,
there. Yeah.
you know. And one thing my like therapist had pointed out to me was she was like, you might stay in these relationships longer than you know you want to because of this pressure your mother puts on you. You know what I mean? And so it's like,
What's that message you've heard for so long?
for so long
Yeah.
fixed in my head. So, you know, once I read this book and I thought about all my relationships, I was like, you know what, like, I can't be mad. It's not like I was mad at my mom for it, but it would aggravate the hell out of me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, even when I broke up with my ex and I knew I could not be with him, it was still this like, well, you know, why don't you try to make it work? Or like, are you going to try? Or you guys were so good together. And it was like, no, Mom, like, you shouldn't want me to. Trust me. You haven't seen the other side of him, and you shouldn't want me to be with someone like that, you know?
Yeah.
But once I like gave that up and I realized this is just what my mom's used to, it just like I just stopped caring.
Well, that's her environmental
Right.
social learning. I mean,
Right.
that's what she picked up over the
Right.
years of her life, was this is what should happen.
Right. And that's just, I had to like let that go and when she says stuff, just let it go right over my head. I don't care. You know what? I am happy.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
am okay that I'm fine that I'm single, and I know the right guy's going to come along, and I know with the things I've realized now that I'm seeing the red flags, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'll be like, you know, someone will be talking to me or whatever, and I'll be, oh, this is why you're talking, you know. Before long, I'm like, okay, you know what? No, I can't, you know.
Yeah,
It's just,
yeah.
I see my ex in you or something. I see this is an exact situation I've been through, and it's like, I'm not going to go through this again, you know. But I think another thing too, we're way too hard on ourselves, and I think it's because of societal norms also,
Yeah,
you know. And
yeah.
it's like,
Well, there's
Who made all
expectations.
this stuff up? Like, seriously, who? Like, our parents instilled it in us.
Yeah.
Their parents instilled it in them. Who the hell started all this crap? Because the reality of it is that
I think we'd have to go a long way back to figure that one out.
out. You know, because this person, I'm just like, no, you've like set this horrible tone. You know, you think about it, when you get out of high school, you're expected to go to college for something that you want to do the rest of your life. How the hell are we supposed to know what we want to do? You know?
And that's one thing you're seeing too, though, and this is one of the issues I have sometimes with some of the colleges and the programs that they have. I mean, I obviously went to school, a lot of school, but the thing that we get to now is, you know, back in the day, that's what it was. You got out of high school, went right to college, did 4 years.
Right.
In that 4-year period, you're supposed to determine exactly what you want to do so that you could go back and get your master's degree and whatever that's going to be, if it's something that requires that, or, you know, go in a different direction, whatever that means, if a 4-year degree is okay too. But you know, nowadays you really have a common factor where people tend to come out of high school now, screw up for a while.
Yeah.
Generally what we see now, screw up for a while, sometimes a decade's worth of screwing up, 2 decades I've seen, but you know, and then decide, okay, I want to go back to school.
Right.
So now we have this huge influx of people who are working, not just going to some dorm, living in a dorm, going to school,
Right.
and mom and dad are paying for everything. Now you're seeing this huge influx of adults in their 30s and even 40s back in college, maybe starting from square one, never did 1 day of college,
Right.
you know, or did a 4 years and then stopped, or did 2 years and then stopped, and then they're getting back to it. So we have this older group of college students now, but we still have the same programming in the schools, like these people haven't lived it all.
Oh, right. Yeah.
You know, it's kind of, I tell people all the time, social work school's like boot camp. So if you go to social work school, especially for a master's in social work, you have to do a practicum, which is 20 hours a week in addition to whatever else you're doing. You have to do all your schoolwork. You have to get all your classes done. You have to appear at your classes. You have to do all this stuff you have to get in. The papers, all that stuff has to go in. But yet you still have to work if you're an
Right.
adult. So now you're looking at 60 hours a week of work if you're working a full-time job to support yourself, plus all this other stuff.
Right.
And it basically melts you down.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have people going through that right now that I'm supervising and helping them with their school stuff, because I'm a field supervisor as well for the school, for Rutgers. You know, we get a lot of their students where I work coming in, and it's a good thing, because I like to bring people through, because I'm trying to eventually, you know, we need to backfill, you know, good people coming into the field. But, you know, they're getting melted down because they just have, you know, so much.
Right.
Because they have to support themselves. It's not like it was, right? So
Right.
things have, it goes to what we were talking about with things changing.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know?
And I went back at 26. I mean, that was like my 3rd time going to college, you know, and then it was like, okay, I finally know what I want to do. And yeah, it's just going from work to school, back to work, back to school, you know,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's just like, it's different, you know, it's like
hard.
I was always like looking
It takes
at
a
these,
certain kind of motivation to
these
get that.
18-year-olds like not coming to class because mom and dad are paying for it, and then they're asking to borrow my notes, and I'm just like, you son of a bitch. You know?
And then you got to
they're getting A's. How are you I'm getting the B minus.
You're getting a B. They're borrowing your notes and getting an A. Well, there you go.
It's like, oh god.
That's a whole nother.
Right now.
That's a whole nother resentment, I guess.
But like back to society, it's funny because you get out of high school and you need to know what you're going to do the rest of your life, and then people are signing marriage certificates before they're even old enough to rent a car.
Yeah.
And the thing is if you drop out of college, or if your marriage doesn't work, or if you quit your job, you're considered like a failure, and it's like, why?
Yeah.
Why aren't we allowed to change our minds? You change so much at the beginning of your life, and it starts to slow down as you get older, Like the bands you listen to at 10, you don't necessarily listen to all the time at 20, or you wonder why the hell you listen to
I don't know.
that,
I still listen to them.
Some of them, but then from 20 to 30, a little more of it sticks. From 30 to 40, like your music choices start to stick, and
it'd be kind of funny to do that. It'd be kind of funny to do that. Is like get a bunch of people to just put what they listened to in high, like when you were in high school, what you listened to in college, and then like what you listen to now.
Yeah.
Like take like a bunch of 40-somethings, right, and do that, because it'd be very interesting. I mean, like I said, I listen to a very wide variety, but I'll tell you what, I don't know what happened to me along this way, because I was like a metalhead in high school.
Yeah.
I was like, all that stuff, and then over the years, now you get in my car, I guarantee you're gonna hear like Billy Joel.
Right.
You're gonna hear.
Exactly. It's like you go back to the classics.
So.
I know. Well, for me, I mean, you're gonna love this. I think in high school I was like all emo, and I look back at this music and I was like, Jesus, I was sad.
What was going on here?
I just had Spotify tell me like my top songs and my top artists of 2019, and number 2 is Beyonce.
Wow. Okay.
Right? I was like, yeah. I was telling my cousin, I'm like, she's my girl. It's my girl. You know what I mean? But it is crazy how you change, But the same thing, like my dad's been like a huge musical influence for me, and so like a lot of this stuff we'd listen to on car rides, when I was younger, I was like, ugh, and now I find myself putting all that like on my favorites playlist, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like, but I mean, people change so much, and I just think we put too much pressure on ourselves. We feel like, well, what are people going to think if, I get a divorce? What are people going to think of me? Like I had a...
Do you think we still have that as much though now as we used to? Because I remember you go back a couple of decades and, there was a whole lot of like, broken home talk, that kind of stuff. And now I think it's actually pretty common to people be on there. I mean, I know a lot of people that have been married and then gotten divorced and then remarried even, and stuff like that. So do you think that's changing a little bit, or?
I do. I think it's more acceptable today. But I think it's also a huge generational thing. I think our parents still don't understand. You know what I mean? Like, why aren't you sticking it out? Because that was a generation, they stayed at the job. Yeah. For their whole life. They had one job, and they had one wife. You know what
nobody
I mean?
has that anymore. Think about that, though.
No, we're not happy somewhere. We're changing. We're changing 4 times a year if we want.
I get resumes now with people who've, they're 10 years, 12 years younger than me.
Right.
And have had like 14 jobs.
Right. Yeah. Because,
I'm like, and that's not uncommon. It doesn't mean anything bad. It just, I look at that as, okay, what's the retention like on this? Right. But, I've been at the same place for, about 15 years.
Yeah. Same here.
Which is fine, but it's rare. Like when we get people, and where I work, we have a lot of people that have been there 20 years, 25 years, all this stuff. And people come in and they talk to us sometimes, and we tell, we go around, we tell people how long we've been there, and people are like, wow, that is so rare, you know? But I think it speaks to the mission that we're trying to do. Yeah. But it's very rare to be, people be anywhere more than 5 years these days, I think. I think 5 years is probably 3 to 5 years is about what the norm would be for someone to be in a job. Right. I don't know what the norm is for someone to be in a marriage. Yeah. But, I mean.
Anymore, I'm not sure. Right. But also people are getting married later also. They're taking more time. People, now it's like some people get out of school and they just start traveling, what I mean? And that's what they're doing, and I know millennials get a totally bad rap, but I think that's definitely like more our thing is like we're not going to do it exactly like, our parents did. Yeah, no. We're going to feel, some of them do, and then some of them don't, I don't.
I always get confused about that, and I know what the greatest generation was, because that was like my grandfather's generation, a World War II group of people. They call it the greatest generation. Then you had the baby boomers, which is like my parents. I'm assuming your parents as well, because in their 60s now. Yeah. Right? But then you got Generation X, which was my generation.
Right, and that's like the one that no one talks about because they
Well, they
don't
used
have any
to.
issues.
They well,
don't really have any issues. So that's great. You know, it's always between the boomers and the millennials.
well, that's just the
always
big
the
thing.
debate,
It's
you
the
know?
big thing now because
Right.
you know it's like you know, here's the thing: who's responsible for the millennials?
Right.
Because the millennials, you know, hey, I love them. Don't get me wrong. I have a lot of them that work for me.
Yeah.
I have a lot of them that are very good friends of mine that are millennials. But you know, there is a different mindset there than I've seen, you know, before. And it's kind of like they're the first generation, and we have the first generation now of you know, 20-somethings that have grown up with handheld devices,
Right.
you know, that we didn't have. You know, I didn't have that when I was a kid. I mean, we had to stop at a payphone. We wanted to make a phone
Right,
call.
I know.
Just dating myself. I'm 47, so
Yeah.
I'm an old guy. But, you know, looking at that, you know, they've gotten information differently. They've communicated differently. Like, they text message quicker than I could talk, some of them.
Yeah.
So, you know, I often joke the next evolution of humans is going to be we're going to have no ears or eyes and just giant thumbs or something. I don't know how this is all going to work, but we're going to, you know, or thumbs with the stylus just built in
Right.
so that we can text effectively.
Right.
But, you know, it's an interesting, you know, thing looking at the generations, and they're the first ones also to grow up with the no one ever loses
Yeah.
kind of, you know, trophies for everyone.
Right. Oh yeah, the
And-
participation award, right?
Personally, yeah, I mean, personally, I think, you know what, hey, that's fine, but someone should still be, you know, because I will tell you this, I believe you learn a lot more, you get a lot more character out of losing and how you handle defeat
Yeah.
than you do from winning.
Right.
Winning's easy.
Right.
You know how to win? Okay, yeah, I won.
Right.
Everybody's celebrating me. Losing is hard.
Yeah.
And you have to learn how to do
You
that
do.
because, you know what? I don't think we adequately prepare the kids today. And I think it's going to flip back the other way at some
Yeah.
point because it can't keep going this way. But I think you can't adequately prepare someone for life because that's what you're supposed to do with your kids.
Right.
Prepare them for life.
Yeah.
I don't think you adequately can prepare them for life if you give them false beliefs that it's always going to be okay,
Right,
because
yeah.
sometimes it might not be okay.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, you got to learn how to take the defeat
And
and
accept
just
it.
walk away from
Right.
it. And you know, it's how we build resilience.
Right.
You don't build resilience from winning.
Right.
You know,
And it's
I could go on a whole rant about
Oh,
that,
I
but I'm
know.
not.
Yeah, it's about failing forward too. You know, they
Yeah.
say. Like years ago, gosh, it was probably 27 or 28. I was trying to. I'm not really sure why. I feel like I'm at a point in my life where I can relate to almost every character Jennifer Aniston has played. And
Okay.
I'm like, I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But
don't know.
I'm kind of stuck right now in like Along Came Polly and Wanderlust, you know, where she kind of wanted to just go live on the commune and, you know,
Okay.
pop a squat anywhere. I'm like right there, or am I like Along Came Polly, like don't feel like committing to anything right now. I'm just kind of right in the middle. But, you know, and where was I going with that?
I don't know. You were going somewhere.
Where she was in Wanderlust, she's always like trying new things, you know. And I went through that phase where I was always like trying to come up with something and
Yeah,
trying to
yeah.
figure out what path I was going to go, but I was always like not. It was just never working, you know.
Yeah,
And at one point, I was trying to come up with this like Match.com, but for volunteering. You know what I mean? So you
Okay.
basically fill out a profile, and this was for specifically Buffalo. I don't know. There's probably something out there now. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
You fill out a profile and like what your interests are, and it would basically just like you'd get a notification there's like this event coming up, because I personally think that should be something that's required of like all high school students. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like that's the part
Or even college students.
or
I mean,
and college
yeah.
too. But I think I once had someone tell me when they hire people, they don't look at their actual job experience. They look at the extracurricular, because that is what makes you who you are. Your
Yeah.
job doesn't define you, you know. But I remember I was talking to someone who was kind of a mentor of mine, like through the whole process, and it never ended up working out. But he actually told me, he's like, I hope that you fail. He goes, because usually the people who fail the first time, they end up coming back
Yeah.
with something like even greater. And so yeah, it never worked out. I tried something else that didn't work out, and then what I was working on actually led me to DC to campaign for the Blue Vision Summit, and that's where I met the women who started the Inland Ocean Coalition out
Yeah,
of
yeah.
Colorado.
Yeah.
And that's where they were like, you should do this chapter. It's like everything you've already done, except you have more networks, you have more resources, and you know, then you fast forward like a year and a half after I started my chapter, and we were invited to Earth X, and here I am, like at one of the biggest environmental summits, like on a stage talking in front of Jeremy Jackson, who's like a huge name in ocean conservation.
Yeah.
It's just like crazy. You
That's
know?
cool.
But it's like
that's
exactly
your journey,
like,
though. I mean, you got to let your journey happen, and that's what you did. You know,
it's all about like, and nothing would work out before that. I mean, it's like the ideas I had. I look back now and I laugh, and I'm just like, what were you thinking? You know.
Well, you know, you've made a whole lot of changes and progress, and you've gone through some adversity, especially over the last couple of years. There's been some things in your life that, and I think it's an important message that people hear that, there is, you can go through things, you can have things come up in life, you can get beat up a bit, and still come out ahead and still come out in a positive light, doing well. We're already at like an hour and 10 minutes.
Holy
you
cow.
believe that? Yeah,
That's wild.
It goes fast. But I mean, it's awesome. I'm glad you came in. Is there anything you want to say, or anything we missed that you think you want to cover, or
No, I think we covered a
anything
lot.
You want to plug? Anything out there? Any books you want to recommend? I know you recommended one.
I definitely pick up The Mastery of Love for anyone going through anything, because it just, like I said, it talks about like healing, and it. Just in a different kind of way, where you know.
It sounds really good. I haven't read it, but it sounds really good.
Yeah, and it's just about things you can do for yourself, which is like forgiveness, and stop trying to analyze what you think the truth is. You don't know what the truth is. The truth is always changing. So, and it talks about how everything what somebody does is not about you.
Yeah.
It's about them. So you can sit there and
check your ego at the door. It's not always about you.
But it's not even when it's like sometimes when someone's like nasty to you, like the example it gives is if you're on the street and someone walks past you and say, "Oh, you look so beautiful today. It makes you feel so good."
Yeah.
What if that person walked past you, you don't even know them, and they said, "Oh, you're really ugly," you know?
Yeah.
And that you have to realize that has nothing to do with you. That's something going on inside of them. And once you can start realizing stuff like that, and then working on forgiveness, and it's such a freeing feeling. But
it's a great thought. It's a great, to be able to kind of roll past that stuff. I always share this one quick story with people. It was about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. I was going around the Somerville Circle, and this woman cut me off, like blatantly just cut me off, and I honked my horn, and then she gave me the finger. And I'm like, I'm just letting you know I'm here, you know. But you have a couple things you can do with that, right? Some people get angry, get upset, get mad, and then it just haunts their own brain for a while. Or you just kind of say, you know what, that person's obviously going through some things that are different than I understand right now.
Right. And it's not you, and it's not anything to get worked up over.
No.
You could let it ruin you could let anything ruin.
Oh, you could let somebody get inside your head and just sit there, and you just can't do it. You have to be able to push that stuff out. But awesome having you in today. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I appreciate
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a great conversation. I think it's going to help a lot of people, and give people some stuff to think about, and which is ultimately what we try to do. So thank you everybody for tuning in to XtremeLyfe.com, Xtreme Lyfe podcast. Real exciting. Thank you, Stephanie, again. Wonderful job, wonderful message, wonderful person. Definitely a great inspiration. And I'm glad to have you here. And next week I will be at the Hyrox World Series of Fitness, podcasting from there. So it'll be a lot of fun there too. So stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe. You can find us at XtremeLyfe.com. Find us at Xtreme Lyfe anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Liberated Syndication, or like I say, you can find us on YouTube, Facebook, all the books, any of those things. So whatever social medias you are privy to. So anyway, thank you again, and we'll see you next time on XtremeLyfe.com.